Hello, sweet friends. Welcome to today's video. My name is Tracy. I love to share crafty ideas with a bit of rustic country charm, just like today's projects. I love to do all kind of rustic things, including painting. I love wreaths. I love Dollar Tree flips. If you do too and are not currently subscribed, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel so that we can become great friends. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started, and I'll share what I have prepared for you today. For my first project, I am creating a mason jar picket fence using one of these wood picket fences that I had on hand. It can be easily created using paint sticks or craft sticks. The mason jar is from the Dollar General. The paper is from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to Mod Podge that on there. And I will show you how I do that a little bit later in the video. I'm going to be making the tag, and I'm using my black Sharpie markers and some distressed ink. I decided to use raffia instead of that jute. The flowers I'm using are these calla lily, little mini calla lilies that I got from Walmart, as well as some mini sunflowers that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I'm going to cut out my paper here. So I want to use the silver part of the lid on the top of the mason jar. So I just turn that over, trace it out, and then cut it out with my scissors. Then now I'm just kind of figuring out how I need to, what size it needs to kind of fit nicely on here. I'm just using some Mod Podge, a thin layer of it, and I just adhere the paper to it. I use my spatula to smooth everything down. Once it's dry, I will go back over with my sanding block and just distress it a bit, as well as get any of the excess paper off that may have been hanging over the side. Then now I'm going to add some depth and dimension. This is what I like to do on my projects. I love to add just some shading, and how I do shading is I have a number 12 flat paintbrush, and I dip half of my brush in paint, the other half in clean water. I blend on a paper towel, and then I go around the edges of my project. And my favorite paintbrushes are linked in the description box below. I'm using a liner brush here with some white paint, and I'm just adding some doodles. That's another thing that I like to do here on my channel. And I love to add just bring my projects to life. Now I'm going to work on my flower bouquet. These little calla lilies are from Walmart. The sunflowers are from Hobby Lobby. I'm just arranging them in a bit of a bouquet, just layering them on top of each other. I also pulled out a few white berries. I cut off a couple stems of that. It adds a bit of whimsiness to it, which I like to do. And flowers are just so pretty, and Walmart has really stepped up their game this year. They have really cute flowers in their craft department. I just secure everything together with a zip tie, and then I'm going to glue it on the back of the mason jar as if it were, to appear that the flowers are coming out of the mason jar. I glue everything down, and then I just have a piece of burlap, and I just glue everything down. That way everything stays nice and tidy, and everything just looks really nice. For my tag, I just have this little tag right here and a fine Sharpie marker. I'm going to hand letter just flowers 5 cents on there. And I just like to use my fine Sharpie marker as well as my ultra fine Sharpie marker just to add some doodling and some dimension with the distress ink. I'm going to crinkle up the tag to give it a more rustic, grungy look to it, what I like to do, and then add that to my mason jar. mason jar comes with a little wire hanger at the top. I left that on because I was going to use my electric staple gun to attach it to the fence. I was going to use that to my advantage, and it worked nicely. Then at the bottom, I'm just using my hot glue gun and attaching that at the bottom where it's all nice and secure. Then I drilled 2 holes in the 2 of the boards at the top. Now I'm adding some wire, and this is some rusty wire that I had on hand, but recently I found some rusty wire, or the color of, brown rusty wire at Michael's. I was very happy to see that they're carrying that because I love adding rusty wire to my primitive country projects. For my second project is my Farmhouse summer jar. Now I am using one of these little mason jars from the Dollar Tree that has the little wire at the top. I'm using some glass beads, also from the Dollar Tree, a strip of the black and white checkered paper from Hobby Lobby, as well as some flowers, kind of keeping with the same summer theme. I'm using some berries, some raffia, a little chalkboard pick, and my new favorite pen, the Posca liner marker. It is a paint pen. I will have a link in the description below because this is my new favorite pen and way to make little signs. I just rolled my paper up and just stuck it in the jar. I didn't cut it or anything. Then I just put some beads in there. And then now I have my flowers. I just cut off the stems that I want and just stick them in the beads because the beads are going to kind of hold them in place, kind of like styrofoam would. And then I'm just going to take some raffia and tie a cute little bow. In this project, I am sharing my Farmhouse summer truck using one of the wooden trucks and the stand from Dollar General. Now, these were offered in the Valentine's season, and as I was cleaning up my craft room over the last few weeks, I found a few things that, because I'll buy a whole bunch of stuff and then, I don't use it. So I wanted to use one of these and also create one for the summer season. I will have my inspiration linked below because it came from Pinterest. Okay, this little wooden truck and the stand is not very easy to find. So what I have available, I have just a free pattern that I'm going to have for anyone that may want this design and aren't able to get it. You can trace it out and then cut it out of cardboard or cut it out of wood or cut it out of foam board or something, and then you can use the tumbling tower blocks to use as the stand. So I am using the actual truck in the wood stand, but I wanted to provide that as a pattern and an idea for those friends that don't have one. I will have a link to where you can download the truck pattern for free. It is for personal use only, please. The truck pattern, I am just using some scrapbook paper, and I am just going to trace it out on the paper. And I made sure that I got the window because that is the only actual hole that I want in my truck. And I'm going to cut two papers out. I'm going to cut, both sides out so that I could have a double-sided truck where you could see the flowers and the greenery from both sides. Now, if you're just going to, have it up against something, don't even waste the time and the resources and the materials, but I thought that this was a great idea. Now, for the wheels of my truck, I'm just using this lid, actually just some chalk paint, and just drawing out some wheels for my truck. I'm showing you two here, but I cut out 4 total. And then just a little tip when you are cutting things out, hold your scissors still and move your paper and you get a cleaner cut. So that's a tip I learned a long time ago and I still use it today. Okay, next I am Mod Podging the paper on the truck, and I just put a thin layer of Mod Podge down, and I like to work in sections. I like to use a squeegee just to kind of help get out any of the excess and just kind of smooth it down. So I'm just putting Mod Podge on there, and then once the Mod Podge, the bottom layer is completely dry, then I will go back over and I will put the top layer of Mod Podge on it. A viewer shared that tip with me a long time ago, and it helps alleviate the bubbles, and I use it every time, and I almost always have a very clean paper. So I thank you viewers for leaving your tips for me. Using the same technique as I did on the mason jar, I just am shading around my truck with some black paint. I dip half of my brush in paint, the other half in clean water. I blend on a paper towel, and I just go around my project just to give it some depth and dimension. I'll go back over with a black Sharpie marker, and then as well as a liner brush and adding some white highlights, just to bring my little truck to life and give it a more realistic look. And of course, a Tracy project would not be complete without a few splatters. I have to do it. If it's not your style, totally leave them off. But I love to splatter paint on my projects. And I do that by just dipping a stiff stencil brush in paint and then just using a little stick. And I pull the stick toward me, and then that splatters the paint on the project. I do that black first, and then I always do the white on top. Now for the hubcaps, I have these wooden split balls. This is the Woodpile brand, and that I got those from Hobby Lobby. You can use different items for hubcaps. These are just what I like to do for my truck project. So for the wooden stand, I just painted it just with black paint, and then now I'm going to shade up the edges the same way, just dipping half of my brush in white paint, the other half in clean water, blending on a paper towel, and then just going around and adding some shading and just give it some definition and character so it's not so boring. Then I will use my fan brush and just brush on some white paint. Then I will use my liner brush and add some more doodles just around the edges, just to, you know, give it the Tracy look that I like for my particular projects. I'm going to do two little signs for the sides of my truck. These little chalkboard labels came from the Dollar Tree in the Crafter Square section. I'm using my new favorite paint marker, the Posca paint pen. It's a PC1MR is the size that I'm using, and I just am hand lettering Country Market sunflowers and seeds for my small little signs here, and then I'm just going to glue those onto my truck to, you know, make it all cute, country, and what I love. Now it's time to put my flowers and greenery on the back of my truck. And since I have paper on the both sides, I am going to put flowers on both of them. But I'm going to just start on one side first. And the flowers, these sunflowers, these came from Hobby Lobby. These yellow bush came from Walmart, as well as this greenery. And so I'm just going to be cutting off sprigs of those and just layering everything on. I am using this wooden home sign as well as two wooden arrows that I'm going to create little houses out of. Now, I had these arrows on hand and decided to use these for my first project. The first arrow had, you know, the drilled holes in it, and I needed to cover those up, so I used some wood putty, also from the Dollar Tree, and just smooth that out so that I could give each of these houses 2 coats of white chalk paint. I did everything with actually, it is in the color plaster, which is more of an off-white. And those Jenga blocks, I was going to use those for dimension, but it didn't work out, so just ignore those. Okay, also in this project, while I had the paint out, I'm going to use this little, it looks like a little nameplate. Using my heat gun to or heat tool to get that sticky sticker off. Okay, I gave that nameplate 2 coats of white chalk paint as well, because it was already white, but it had a shininess to it, and it was going to not look good with my little houses. So I just painted over it with some chalk paint, and then shaded all of my projects with some brown paint, like I like to do in my projects. Then I'll use my ultra fine Sharpie marker just to go around the edges of each of the painted projects to make it stand out a little bit more. I go around the houses as well as the sign and the little home sign. I also added some splattering. I'm old school. I like to continue to do this to my projects because I like the look of it. I'm using my Posca pen, this large pen, and it's like a paint marker. I got it off of Amazon, and so I'm just writing our last name here on the nameplate and just doing my little happy dots, what I like to do. And that is going to be the little nameplate for our little house, little vignette. To attach the wood houses to the home sign, I am just hot gluing the taller wood sign to the back, just butting it up there, and then I will attach the shorter one. Those Jenga blocks, I was going to use them as like, dimension, but once I put it all together, I didn't even need those, so just scratch that. Okay, I'm creating little like address signs for us, and then right next door, because our son bought his first home, and we allowed him to put it on the lot next to us. So that's kind of the basis behind this little project here, because we have, both of us are side by side, and I thought that it's going to look really cute. Okay, I just, used my Posca pen to write our house numbers there. Greenery is just what this little project needed, so I'm just hot gluing some greenery. Now that particular greenery came from Walmart, and I just hot glued it, just kind of playing around with it where I thought that it looked really nice. Okay, for the home sign, I did the same thing. I just attached 2 of the little sprigs of greenery with a chenille stem and just hot glued it there at the base of that little name sign. The buffalo check ribbon came from Hobby Lobby, and that is all. Everything is from my stash. And this thin ribbon also is from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just making a cute little bow. I don't need anything really overbearing, just a little accent there with my greenery.